The council chamber floated in the darkness of space like a jewel. Inside, representatives from 50 different worlds sat in their designated seats. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had legs, others floated. But all of them had come to decide the fate of a dying race. Captain Hyun-woo stood at the back of the observation gallery. His uniform was crisp and clean, but his face showed the strain of 3 sleepless nights. Next to him, Ji-won studied her data tablet with worried eyes. The numbers didn't lie. The Velrus had maybe 6 months before their sun collapsed completely. They're going to say no, Ji-won whispered. I can feel it. Hyun-woo wanted to disagree, but he had been in enough of these meetings to know she was probably right. The Galactic Council loved their rules more than they loved doing what was right. Tae-young joined them from the diplomatic section. Her face was pale. I spoke with the Axarim delegate during the break. He said, their decision is already made. They won't help. On the main floor, a hologram showed the Velrus homeworld. It was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents. Cities sparkled across the night side. But the sun in the image flickered like a candle about to go out. Over 4 billion Velrus lived on that world. 4 billion people who had done nothing wrong except be born to a star that was dying. The head counselor, an ancient Exorim whose crystalline body refracted light into rainbows, raised one limb for silence. We have reviewed the petition from the Velrus people. We have studied the data. Their sun is failing due to natural processes. This is unfortunate but not unprecedented. Hyun-woo felt his jaw clench. Unfortunate. As if losing 4 billion lives was the same as spilling coffee. The Velrus are a pre-warp civilization, the counselor continued. They have not yet achieved faster-than-light travel. Our laws are clear. We do not interfere with pre-warp species. To do so would be to disrupt their natural development. A pellucid delegate, its gaseous form contained in a floating sphere, spoke next. Its voice sounded like wind through caves. We have watched countless species rise and fall over millions of years. This is the way of the cosmos. Death and birth, ending and beginning. Who are we to interfere with such fundamental forces? Ji-won gripped her tablet so hard her knuckles turned white. They're not talking about forces, she muttered. They're talking about people. Another delegate stood, this one from a species humanity had never seen before. It looked like a collection of roots twisted into a vaguely humanoid shape. If we save every species from every natural disaster, where does it end? Do we stop asteroids? Do we prevent ice ages? Do we hold back evolution itself? Yes. Hyun-woo wanted to shout, but he kept his mouth shut. Humanity was new to the council. They had only been members for 10 years. Their vote counted for almost nothing. Tae-young had explained it to him once. The council operated on a system where older members had more power. Some species had been members for 10,000 years. Humanity's single vote meant nothing against their hundreds. The debate continued for another hour, but it was just talk. Everyone knew the decision had been made before the meeting even started. One by one, the delegates voted. One by one, they chose to let the Velrus die. When the humans' turn came, Hyun-woo stood and cast their vote to help. It was recorded and ignored in the same breath. The final count was 47 against intervention, 3 in favor. Only humanity and 2 other young species had voted to save lives. The matter is settled, the head counselor announced. The Galactic Council will not intervene in the Velrus situation. This chamber is adjourned. The delegates began filing out, already discussing their next meeting, their next debate. None of them seemed to care that they had just condemned a world. Hyun-woo stood frozen in place. He had served in space for 20 years. He had seen combat, had made hard choices, had lost friends. But he had never felt as disgusted as he did in that moment. Captain, Ji-won said softly. They walked back to their ship in silence. The Times, Steadfast Horizon Times, was docked at the station's outer ring. a sleek human vessel that looked almost primitive next to the exotic ships of older species. But it was fast, and it was tough, and right now, those were the qualities that mattered. Once they were safely in Hyun-woo's ready room, Tae-young locked the door behind them. What do we do now? Hyun-woo pulled up the star charts on his personal terminal. The Velris system was 3 weeks away at maximum warp. The Council had listening posts between here and there, but they could be avoided. Probably. We call home, he said finally. We talk to Admiral Subin. We see if Earth has the stomach to do what's right, even if the Council says it's wrong. Every. G1 leaned over the charts. I've been working on a theory. If we could inject enough hydrogen fuel into the star's core, restart the fusion reaction, we might be able to save it. It's never been tested, but the math works. That would require the entire engineering core, Tae-young pointed out. Multiple ships, resources. This wouldn't be a quiet operation. No. Hyun-woo agreed. It wouldn't be. The Council would know what we were doing. They would try to stop us. Earth could be expelled from the Council entirely. The three of them looked at each other. The weight of the decision pressed down on them like gravity. Hyun-woo opened a secure channel to Earth. It took several minutes to connect across the light years. When Admiral Subin's face appeared on the screen, Hyun-woo took a deep breath and explained everything. The Council's vote. The dying star. G1's theory. The risks. The Admiral listened without interruption. Her face was hard to read, carved from stone by decades of command. When Hyun-woo finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You understand what you're asking, she said finally. You're asking me to authorize an act that could end humanity's relationship with the Galactic Council. You're asking me to risk everything we've built. Yes, ma'am. Another long silence. Then Subin smiled, and it was fierce and proud. Good, because if we've built a relationship that requires us to stand by and watch billions die, then it's not worth keeping. Prepare for Operation Exodus. I'm sending you reinforcements. The transmission ended. Hyun-woo looked at his officers and saw his own determination reflected in their eyes. Well, G1 said. I guess we're really doing this. We are, Hyun-woo confirmed. Plot a course for the Velris system, and pray we're fast enough. The Times' steadfast horizon times undocked from the station an hour later, slipping away into the dark. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued their endless debates, never knowing that humanity had just chosen a different path. The human fleet gathered at the edge of Council space like wolves preparing for a hunt. 6 ships in total, each one carrying equipment and personnel that Earth could barely afford to spare. But Admiral Subin had made the call, and humanity had answered. Hyun-woo watched from the bridge of the Times' steadfast horizon times as the last ship dropped out of warp. The Times Forge of Tomorrow Times was massive, an engineering vessel designed to build space stations and repair damaged ships. Captain Min-ho commanded her. And if anyone could restart a dying star, it would be his crew. All ships reporting ready, Captain, the communications officer announced. Good. Open a channel to the fleet. Hyun-woo looked at the faces that appeared on his screen. Min-ho with his easy smile that hid a brilliant mind. Dr. Yuna from the medical ship Times Mercy's hand asterisk, her expression serious and focused. Commander Jae-hyun of the escort frigates, young but tested in combat against pirates. These were good people, about to risk everything. You all know why we're here, Hyun-woo began. The Council has abandoned the Velris. We're going to save them anyway. What we're about to do violates Council law. If we succeed, we'll be heroes. If we fail, we'll be criminals. Either way, there's no going back once we cross into that system. He paused, giving them one last chance to reconsider. No one spoke. Then let's get to work. Min-ho, I need your best estimate on the stellar rekindling equipment. The engineering captain pulled up a hologram that showed the dying Velris sun. We'll need to build 4 orbital platforms around the star. Each one will inject hydrogen fuel and exotic particles directly into the core. The magnetic containment fields have to be perfectly synchronized, or we'll trigger a supernova instead of a restart. How long? If everything goes perfectly, 5 days. Realistically, 7, maybe 8. G1 leaned forward at her station. The star will collapse completely in 12 days. That gives us less than 4 days of margin for error. Then we better not make any errors, Hyunwoo said. Dr. Yuna, what's your situation? The doctor's face filled the screen. I've been studying Velrus biology from their transmissions. They're carbon-based like us, but their cellular structure is more complex. The radiation from their dying sun is causing widespread illness. Approved. Taeyang will go with you. We need to make first contact carefully. We don't want to cause a panic. Taeyang nodded from her position. She had spent the last week learning everything she could about Velri's culture and language. Their transmissions had been desperate but beautiful, full of poetry and hope even as their world died. Commander Jae-hyun, Hyunwoo continued, your frigates will maintain a perimeter. The Council will send ships to stop us once they figure out what we're doing. The young commander's jaw set firmly. They'll have to go through us first, sir. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. All ships, set course for the Velrus system. Maximum warp. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed, leaving Council space behind. For 3 days, they traveled through regions of space that no human had ever seen. They passed nebulas that glowed with colors that had no names. They skirted black holes that bent light into impossible shapes. On the second day, they encountered a spatial anomaly that nearly tore the Times Mercy's hand times apart. The fabric of space twisted and compressed, creating gravitational waves that threatened to crush the ship. Ye-hyun's frigates formed a protective formation, while G1 calculated a safe passage through the distortion. There's a narrow corridor, she announced, her fingers flying across her console. It's only stable for about 6 minutes. We have to go through single file. And we can't stop. One by one, the ships threaded through the anomaly. The Times, steadfast horizon Times, went first, her hull groaning under the stress. Then came the frigates, small and nimble enough to dart through quickly. The Times Forge of Tomorrow Times barely fit, her massive bulk scraping against the edges of safe space. The Times Mercy's hand times went last. She was halfway through when the corridor began to collapse. Alarms blared across every ship. Yuna, punch it, Hyunwoo shouted. Full emergency thrust. The medical ship's engines screamed as they pushed past safety limits. She shot through the closing gap with seconds to spare. Behind her, the anomaly collapsed completely, cutting off their route back. Everyone okay? Hyunwoo called. One by one, the ships reported in. Some damage, but nothing critical. They were committed now. There was no turning back even if they wanted to. G1 worked through the nights, refining her calculations for the stellar rekindling. The theory was sound, but theory and practice were different things. One mistake and they wouldn't just fail to save the star. They would destroy it completely, taking the Velrus with it. I think I've got it, she announced on the 3rd day. But Hyunwoo, it's going to be close. The margin for error is less than 0.01%. Can we do it? She looked at him with tired eyes. Honestly, I don't know. We're attempting something that's never been done. We're trying to restart a star that's been dying for a century. Even if the math is perfect, a million things could go wrong. But it could work? It could work. Then that's all we need. On the 4th day, they received a transmission from the Galactic Council. It was marked urgent, and for the captain's eyes only. Hyunwoo played it in his ready room. The Exorum head counselor's face appeared, shimmering with anger. Captain Hyunwoo, you are hereby ordered to cease your unauthorized mission immediately. What you are attempting is a violation of Council law. Return to Axiom Prime to face judgment, or Earth will be expelled from the Council and subject to sanctions. Hyunwoo looked at the message for a long moment. Then he deleted it without responding. Taeyang found him staring out at the stars. They'll come after us. I know. Earth could lose everything. They could. Was it worth it? Hyunwoo thought about the transmissions they had received from the Velris. Desperate pleas for help. Children asking if someone, anyone, would save them. Parents begging the universe not to let their families die. Ask me again when we've saved 4 billion lives, he said. The fleet dropped out of warp at the edge of the Velris system on the 5th day. Through the viewports, they could see the dying star. It flickered and pulsed, throwing off irregular waves of radiation. The planet orbited close, a blue-green marble that was slowly being cooked by its own sun's death throes. Scan for council ships, Hyunwoo ordered. None detected, the sensor officer reported. We got here first. Good. All ships, begin operation. Minho, start building those platforms. Yuna, prepare your medical teams. Taeyang, open a channel to the Velris. The fleet moved into action, each ship racing against time and physics to do the impossible. On the planet below, the Velris detected their arrival. Confusion and hope mixed in the transmissions that reached the fleet. Taeyang spoke carefully in their language, words of greeting and promise. We are humanity. We have come to help. Your son will not die. We will not let it. Far behind them, Council enforcement ships began preparing for pursuit. The Axorum were coming, and they were not happy. But the humans had a head start, and they intended to use every second of it. The Velris homeworld was dying in slow motion. From orbit, Hyunwoo could see the scars. Massive dust storms covered the equator, where farms had once grown food for billions. The polar ice caps had melted and refrozen 3 times in the past year, throwing weather patterns into chaos. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were being abandoned as people fled underground. Reading massive population movements, Ji-won reported from her station. They're evacuating the surface cities, moving into bunker complexes. Can't blame them, Hyunwoo muttered. The star's radiation was cooking the planet. Staying on the surface meant death from radiation poisoning or starvation as crops failed. On the medical ship, Yuna was loading the last of her equipment onto shuttles. As ready as I'll ever be. I'm taking down 50 medical personnel and enough supplies for a month. But Hyunwoo, I need you to understand something. The radiation damage I'm seeing in their medical transmissions is severe. Some of these people have been sick for years. I can treat symptoms, but without fixing that star, they're all going to die anyway. We're working on it. Minho. Status? The engineering captain appeared on screen from the bridge of the Times Forge of Tomorrow *. Behind him, Hyunwoo could see his crew rushing around, carrying equipment and shouting coordinates. First platform is 70% complete. We're working as fast as we can. But this is delicate work. One mistake, and we're building a bomb instead of a life support system. How long until all 4 are ready? 6 days, maybe 5 if we skip sleep, meals, and safety protocols. We don't have 6 days. Then I don't know what to tell you, Captain. Physics doesn't care about our deadline. Hyunwoo closed his eyes and took a breath. Do your best. That's all any of us can do. Yuna's shuttles descended through the atmosphere, buffeted by the violent winds that now dominated the planet's weather. She gripped her seat as the pilot fought to keep them steady. Around her, the medical team checked their equipment one last time. They landed outside one of the underground cities. The entrance was a massive tunnel that led down into the planet's crust, where the Velris had built their emergency shelters. As the shuttle ramp lowered, Yuna got her first look at the people she had come to save. The Velris were beautiful. They stood on 6 legs, arranged in a circle around their bodies. Their skin was smooth and covered in patterns that glowed softly with bioluminescence. Each one had 4 arms that moved with elegant precision. Their faces were alien but somehow kind, with large eyes that reflected intelligence and fear in equal measure. A group of them waited at the tunnel entrance. One stepped forward, its pattern glowing brighter with what Yuna hoped was greeting and not alarm. When it spoke, the translator device on her collar rendered the words into something she could understand. You are the humans, the ones who spoke from the sky? I am Dr. Yuna. We've come to help your people. The Velrus's body rippled with emotion. Our healers say we have perhaps 2 months before the radiation sickness takes the majority of our population. The children are dying first. Can you stop it? Yuna felt her heart break a little. I can treat the sickness. I can buy you time. But to truly save you, we need to save your son. My colleagues are working on that now. To save a son, the Velrus said softly. Is such a thing possible? We're going to find out. They led her deep underground into vast caverns that had been converted into cities. Millions of Velrus packed into spaces meant for thousands. The air was thick and warm, maintained by geothermal power that wouldn't last forever. Yuna saw children huddled together, their bioluminescence dim with sickness. She saw elders whose patterns had faded to almost nothing. Set up here, she ordered her team. Priority to the children and anyone in critical condition. A young Velrus approached her, its patterns showing curiosity and hope. I am Kilreth. I study medicine among my people. May I assist? Yuna smiled. I'd be grateful for the help. Can you tell me about Velrus physiology? I've studied your biology, but theory and practice are different. Kilreth proved to be a quick learner and an excellent translator. Together, they moved through the crowds, treating radiation sickness with medicines that had never been tested on Velrus before. It was risky, but doing nothing was worse. Above them, in orbit, Minho and his crew worked like machines. The orbital platforms were taking shape, massive structures of metal and exotic materials that would channel unimaginable energies into the dying star. Magnetic Field Generator 3 is misaligned, one of his engineers reported. Then recalibrate it. We don't have time for mistakes. G1 floated in a small shuttle near the star, taking measurements and feeding data back to the Time's steadfast horizon asterisk. The heat was intense, even through the shuttle's shielding. She watched the star pulse and flicker, and ran simulation after simulation through her computer. Each one showed the same thing. They could do this. The math worked. But the timing had to be perfect, and perfect was a lot to ask when dealing with forces that could destroy solar systems. On the 5th day, Commander Jae-hyun's sensors detected incoming ships. 3 of them, traveling at high warp speed. Council enforcement vessels led by an Axarim battlecruiser. Captain, we have company, Jae-hyun reported. ETA 4 hours. Hyunwoo stood on his bridge and felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. All frigates, move into defensive formation. Do not fire unless fired upon. We're not here to start a war. And if they fire first, then we defend ourselves and keep working. Nothing stops this mission. Nothing. The Council ships dropped out of warp at the edge of the system and began broadcasting on all frequencies. The Axorim commander's voice was cold and hard as crystal. Human vessels, you are in violation of galactic law. Cease your operation immediately and surrender yourselves for judgment. Hyunwoo opened a return channel. We're saving 4 billion lives. That's not a crime. You are interfering with a pre-warp species. That is exactly a crime. You have 1 hour to comply. Hyunwoo closed the channel and turned to his crew. Tae Yang, open a broadcast to the entire galaxy. Not just the Council. Everyone. I want every species with a receiver to see what we're doing here. Captain, that's going to make a lot of noise. Good. Let them see. Let them decide if we're criminals or heroes. The broadcast went out, carried by subspace relays across thousands of light years. It showed the dying Velry's sun. It showed the sick and frightened people underground. It showed human engineers working themselves to exhaustion to build something that had never been built before. Most importantly, it showed the Council ships sitting at the edge of the system, doing nothing to help. On Axiom Prime, the Council chamber erupted into chaos as delegates shouted at each other. Some demanded humanity be destroyed. Others wanted to know why the Council was trying to stop a rescue mission. The younger species especially were asking hard questions. In the Velrus system, Minho finished the last platform. That's it. All four are complete and in position. G1, we're ready for your calculations. Transmitting now. Remember, the sequence has to be exact. If even one platform fires out of sync, we're all dead. No pressure then. Below, Yuna held Kilrith's hand as they looked up through the tunnel entrance at the sky. The star was visible even in daylight, a sickly white point that pulsed irregularly. Will it work? Kilrith asked. Yuna squeezed its hand gently. I don't know, but we're trying. That counts for something. The Exorum battlecruiser powered up its weapons. On the Times, Steadfast, Horizon Asterisk, alarms began to wail. They're locking weapons on us, the tactical officer reported. Hold position, Hyunwoo ordered. Minho, are you ready? As ready as I'll ever be. Then light it up. Save these people. The orbital platforms activated in perfect sequence, pouring hydrogen and exotic particles into the heart of a dying star. The star screamed. Not with sound, because space carried no sound, but with radiation that made every sensor on every ship shriek warnings. The dying white dwarf convulsed as exotic particles and fresh hydrogen flooded into its core. On the bridge of the Times, Steadfast Horizon Asterisk, G1 watched her readouts with wide eyes. Fusion reactions increasing. Core temperature rising. This is working. This is actually working. One. But then the star pulsed wrong. The light stuttered and flared, throwing off a wave of radiation that washed over the platforms. Platform 2 is overheating, Minho shouted from the Times Forge of Tomorrow asterisk. The magnetic containment is fluctuating. If it fails, it'll trigger a chain reaction. G1's fingers flew across her console, recalculating on the fly. Reduce power to Platform 2 by 40%. Increase Platforms 1 and 3 by 20% each to compensate. That's not in the plan. The plan didn't account for stellar convection this unstable. Make the adjustment, or we lose everything. Minho trusted her. His crew scrambled to make the changes, while the star bucked and heaved beneath them like a wild animal. The platforms adjusted their output, the magnetic fields shifting to accommodate the star's violent reactions. Meanwhile, the Axorum battlecruiser hung at the edge of the system like a judge waiting to pass sentence. Its weapons were powered and locked on the human fleet. They're hailing us again, the communications officer reported. The Axorum commander's crystalline face filled the view screen. You are creating a threat to this entire system. Our analysis shows a 70% chance of stellar detonation. You will cease immediately, or we will be forced to destroy your platforms. Hyunwoo stood and walked closer to the screen. If you destroy those platforms now, you guarantee that star explodes. The only way forward is through. Either we succeed, or we all die trying. Unacceptable. You are risking billions of lives on an untested theory, and you would rather let those billions die for certain? What kind of logic is that? The Axorum commander was silent for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, the battlecruiser powered down its weapons. Commander Jae-hyun let out a breath he hadn't known he was holding. Sir, they're backing off. Stay alert. This isn't over yet. On the surface, the Velrus watched their sky. In the underground cities, millions gathered in public spaces, where holographic projections showed what was happening in orbit. They saw the human ships. They saw the platforms feeding their sun. They saw, for the first time in generations, hope. Kilreth stood with Yuna at the tunnel entrance. Your people are either the bravest I have ever encountered, or the most foolish. Yuna laughed, though it was strained. We've been called both before, usually at the same time. The star pulsed again, brighter this time. Then brighter still. The platforms poured more fuel into the core, forcing the fusion reactions to restart. It was like trying to jumpstart a heart that had been still for too long. G1's console exploded with warnings. The core pressure is building too fast. If it breaches the containment, The star will go supernova. Can you compensate? Hyunwoo demanded. I'm trying. The magnetic fields are at maximum. We need to bleed off excess energy. But if we do it wrong, we'll disrupt the fusion process. She worked like she had never worked before. Her mind racing through calculations that would have taken a team of scientists weeks to verify. She had minutes at best. Every decision could be the one that killed them all. Adjusting field geometry. Rotating platform positions by 0.05 degrees. Creating a pressure release valve. In the magnetic bubble, the star convulsed again. A massive flare erupted from its surface. A tendril of plasma that reached out into space. It struck Platform 4, and for a horrifying moment, the platform went dark. Platform 4 is offline, Minho shouted. We've lost magnetic containment on the southern quadrant. Without that platform, the carefully balanced forces keeping the star stable would collapse. The fusion reaction would spiral out of control. Everything they had worked for would end in a blast of radiation that would sterilize the planet. I'm going out there, Minho announced. What? No. The radiation levels will kill you in minutes. Then I better work fast. I can reroute power from my ship to the platform. Manually restart it. Minho. That's suicide. So is sitting here and watching 4 billion people die. Before anyone could stop him, Minho was in an engineering suit and out the airlock. He flew through space on a thruster pack, racing toward Platform 4 while the star raged behind him. His radiation counter started climbing immediately. The numbers ticked up faster and faster. Lethal dose in 5 minutes. 4 minutes. 3. He reached the platform and started working. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, connecting power cables from his suit's emergency battery to the platform's systems. The radiation cooked him through the suit, but he ignored it. Power connected. Starting restart sequence. On the Time's steadfast horizon asterisk, G1 held her breath. The platform flickered, sparked, then roared back to life. The magnetic field snapped back into place, containing the star's fury. He did it! Someone shouted, but Minho wasn't moving. He floated near the platform, his suit's life signs dropping. Get him back, Hyunwoo ordered. Now. Jaehyun's frigate shot forward, a rescue shuttle launching from its bay. They grabbed Minho and pulled him back just as his suit's oxygen ran out. On the medical ship, Yuna received him into her emergency bay. He was unconscious, his body burned by radiation. Get me every anti-rad medication we have. Move. Andophis. But even as she worked to save Minho, something incredible was happening in orbit. The star stabilized. The pulsing became regular. The flickering stopped, and then, slowly, like dawn breaking after an endless night, the star began to glow with a warm, steady yellow light. Ji-won stared at her readings in disbelief. Fusion reaction stable. Core temperature optimal. Radiation output normalized. It worked. We actually restarted a star. The Velris planet was bathed in healthy sunlight for the first time in years. In the underground cities, people fell to their knees. Some wept. Some laughed. Some simply stood in stunned silence as holographic projections showed their sun. No longer dying, but living. Kilreth grabbed Yuna's arm. You did it. You saved us. You saved all of us. Yuna smiled, tears running down her face. It was a team effort. On the bridge of the Time's steadfast horizon asterisk, Hyunwoo watched as the planet's clouds began to shift. Weather patterns that had been chaotic for years started to stabilize. The killing radiation faded. Life could return to the surface. Captain, the communications officer said quietly, we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Other species are responding to our broadcast. What are they saying? Most of them want to know how we did it. Some are asking if we can help their worlds. And sir, the younger Council species are demanding the Council change its laws. The Axorum battlecruiser turned, and began accelerating away from the system. They had come to stop humanity. Instead, they had witnessed something they thought impossible. Taeyang approached Hyunwoo. What happens now? Now? Now the council has to decide if they want to punish us for being right or change their laws to do better. 1. And Minho, Hyunwoo's expression darkened. Get me a link to the medical bay. 2. Yuna appeared on screen, exhausted but determined. He's stable. The radiation damage is severe, but he'll live. He's going to be in treatment for months, but he'll live. Tell him when he wakes up that he's either getting a medal or a court-martial. I haven't decided which yet. Yuna actually laughed. I think he'd take either at this point. The human fleet held position in orbit as the Velreese world slowly healed beneath them. They had done something impossible. They had defied the council, broken the laws, and saved 4 billion lives. Now they just had to face the consequences. The summons came 3 days after the star was saved. Captain Hyunwoo was to appear before the Galactic Council to answer charges of unauthorized intervention and violation of the Prime Directive. The message made it clear that this was not optional. They want to make an example of us, Taeyang said, reading the official document. This trial is designed to put us in our place. Let them try, Hyunwoo replied. He was tired. They all were. But he wasn't afraid. When do we leave? The hearing is scheduled for 6 days from now. That gives us time to get back to Axiom Prime. Below them, the Velris world was transformed. Green was returning to the continents as plants that had gone dormant began to grow again. The oceans calmed as weather patterns stabilized. Surface cities were being reopened. It was like watching a patient wake from a coma. Kilreth had asked to come with them to the council. The Velreese wanted someone to speak for them, and the young medical student had volunteered. I have seen what your people did for us. I will tell the council what I witnessed. The journey back to Axiom Prime was strange. Other ships gave them wide berth, as if they carried some contagious disease. But Hyunwoo also noticed that many of the younger species' vessels flashed their running lights in patterns that meant respect or greeting. When they docked at the station, they found the gallery packed with observers. Word of the hearing had spread across the galaxy. Representatives from hundreds of species had come to watch. The chamber that usually held 50 delegates now overflowed with witnesses. Admiral Subin was waiting for them at the docking port. She wore her full dress uniform, and her face showed the strain of weeks spent defending humanity's actions to the council. How bad is it? Hyunwoo asked. Bad. The elder species want you arrested. Earth expelled from the council. Maybe even sanctions. But the younger species are causing problems for them. There have been protests on dozens of worlds. But I said, people demanding that the council explain why they tried to stop a rescue mission. People are asking the right questions then. Yes. But that might make the council more determined to punish you. As a warning to others. They walked through the station together. Hyunwoo noticed the looks they received. Some were hostile, especially from members of the elder species. But others were curious, or even admiring. The hearing began at the appointed time. The Axarim head counselor sat at the center of the elevated platform, flanked by representatives from the Pellucids and other ancient species. Below them, in what should have been the accused's dock, Hyunwoo stood with his officers. Captain Hyunwoo of Earth, the head counselor intoned. You stand accused of violating the Prime Directive of non-interference. You took it upon yourself to interfere with a pre-warp civilization. You risked catastrophic destruction of an entire solar system. How do you answer these charges? Hyunwoo looked up at the crystalline being and spoke clearly. I answer that 4 billion people are alive today who would be dead if we had followed your laws. I answer that we had the power to help, and we chose to use it. If that makes me a criminal in your eyes, then I'm proud to be a criminal. The chamber erupted. Some delegates shouted approval. Others demanded silence. The head counselor called for order. You admit your crime then. I admit to saving lives. Whether that's a crime or not is for you to decide. But I won't apologize for it. A pellucid delegate spoke, its voice echoing through the chamber. You could have destroyed that star. Our analysis shows you came within decimal points of triggering a supernova. You gambled with billions of lives. G1 stepped forward. We didn't gamble. We calculated. Every decision was based on sound science and careful analysis. Yes, there were risks. But the alternative was certain death. We chose possible life over guaranteed death. That was not your choice to make. An elder delegate argued. The Velris are not a warp-capable species. They have not earned the right to join the galactic community. Earned? Taeyang's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. You're saying they had to earn the right to not die? That's not a law. That's cruelty dressed up in bureaucracy. The head counselor raised a limb for silence. You speak of cruelty, yet you violated laws that have kept the galaxy stable for millions of years. The Prime Directive exists for good reasons. If we save every species from every natural disaster, where does it end? It ends when everyone who can be saved is saved, Hyunwoo said simply. A commotion at the chamber doors interrupted the proceedings. Kilreth entered, accompanied by a full Velris delegation. They had come in secret, in ships borrowed from sympathetic younger species. They stood in the gallery, their bioluminescent patterns glowing with determination. May I speak? Kilreth asked. The head counselor looked like he wanted to refuse, but the chamber was too full of witnesses. You may address the council. Kilreth walked to the center of the floor. I am Kilreth of Velris. I represent a people you decided were not worth saving. I watched human doctors work until they collapsed from exhaustion to heal our sick. I watched human engineers risk their lives to restart our sun. I watched Captain Hyunwoo defy the most powerful government in the galaxy because he could not stand by and watch us die. The young Velris turned to face the elder species. You say there are laws. You say there are rules. But I ask you, what good are your laws if they demand you watch innocents die? What good is your stability if it's built on the graves of civilizations you could have saved? The Prime Directive protects developing species from being corrupted or manipulated. A delegate argued. Protected? Kilreth's patterns flashed with anger. You weren't protecting us. You were leaving us to die. There's a difference. Admiral Subin stood then, her voice carrying authority earned through decades of service. The Council is right that the Prime Directive has value, but it was created to prevent exploitation, not to excuse indifference. Humanity proposes an amendment. Allow intervention in cases of extinction events, natural disasters, and planetary emergencies. Create a humanitarian response system. Give species like mine, who are willing to help, the legal framework to do so. And who decides what qualifies as an emergency? The head counselor asked. A committee, made up of both elder and younger species, with clear guidelines and oversight. We're not asking to overturn your laws. We're asking to evolve them. The chamber fell silent. Hyunwoo watched the delegates look at each other, having conversations without words. He knew the elder species didn't want to change. Change threatened their power, their comfortable certainty. But he also saw the younger species. They were paying attention. They were taking notes. They were thinking. We will vote, the head counselor announced. The question before us is twofold. First, do we punish humanity for their violation? Second, do we reform the Prime Directive, as suggested? The vote took hours. One by one, delegates cast their decisions. The elder species voted as expected, demanding punishment and refusing change. But the younger species, those who had only been council members for a few thousand years instead of millions, voted differently. When the count was finished, the chamber was split almost evenly. The elder species had more votes, but not enough to expel humanity. The reform proposal passed by the narrowest of margins. The head counselor looked disappointed but bound by law. By the authority vested in this council, we hereby amend the Prime Directive to allow intervention in extinction-level events, subject to oversight and approval. Humanity will not be expelled but will be censured for their unauthorized action. Captain Hyun-woo, you are officially reprimanded. Hyun-woo nodded. A reprimand he could live with. Furthermore, the counselor continued, and now his voice held something that might have been grudging respect. Humanity is assigned to lead the formation of the new humanitarian response fleet. You wanted to save lives. Now, you have the authority to do so properly. The chamber erupted into chaos again. Some celebrating, some protesting. Through it all, Hyun-woo and his crew stood together. Later, on the observation deck of the Time's Steadfast Horizon asterisk, they watched the stars. The Velris delegation had returned home to a world that was healing. Minho was recovering, already planning improvements to the stellar rekindling platforms. Earth had sent congratulations and new orders. 3 more systems have requested aid, Ji-won said, reading from her tablet. A planet facing an asteroid strike. Another with a plague they can't cure. A third, where the ecosystem is collapsing. Can we help them? Hyun-woo asked. With the resources the Council is allocating to the response fleet? Yes, we can help them all. Taeyang joined them at the viewport. It's strange. A month ago, we were criminals. Now, we're heroes. The galaxy's perspective can change quickly. No, Hyun-woo corrected gently. We were always doing the right thing. It just took the galaxy time to catch up. The ship's engines hummed to life as they prepared for departure. Somewhere out there, people needed help. And humanity, as always, would answer the call. Jae-hyun walked up behind them. Captain, we have our coordinates. Ready to jump on your command. Hyun-woo looked out at the infinite stars, each one potentially home to civilizations that needed saving. The Council had spent millions of years debating what was right. Humanity had spent a few weeks simply doing it. Set course for the asteroid crisis first. Best speed. Let's not keep them waiting. The Time's Steadfast Horizon Times jumped to warp, leading a fleet that would grow larger with each mission. They carried with them something the galaxy had forgotten it needed: hope. And the stubborn human refusal to let anyone die, if there was even the smallest chance to save them. The stars watched them go, and in the darkness between systems, other species began to wonder. If humanity could restart a dying star, what else might they accomplish? The galaxy was about to find out.